welcome to another episode of The Single Girl's Guide to Life, your weekly guide to single life living in your 20s, 30s and 40s. I'm Chantel Dyson, a single life empowerment coach, helping single women to overcome loneliness. And we do that through events, through this podcast, and through coaching programs that address all things dating, friendships, living alone, embracing your single life, and more. And in today's episode, we are going to swing back round to dating, because as much as I encourage all of you to embrace your single life and to make sure that you are living your best life whilst you're single, a lot of people still do want to find somebody to be with and to experience that relationship with. And if you've listened to this podcast for any length of time, you will know that I flip between, yes, I'm looking, no, I'm not dating at the moment, and you're entitled to do that. It's absolutely okay to do that. However, I also think something needs a real key bit of addressing that I've been thinking about for a long while. I've referred to it before. I've heard it being referred to before. And that's to do with the odds in dating and the fact that realistically, the odds are stacked against you in dating. Now, that might seem really obvious to some people in that, yeah, it's really hard to find that one true love. I don't necessarily believe in the concept of it being only one person, and I'm not even sure I believe in that idea that we're going to end up with one person and stay with them forever. This comes from somebody who has gone through a divorce already, so therefore you can see where that belief could come from. I don't look back at that period of time I was with that person as a waste. Maybe I could have left earlier, maybe we could have agreed on leaving at a certain point. We didn't, and that's okay, but those 7 years I had with those person weren't a write-off to me. They were just part of my life. They're a chapter. They're part of Chantel Dyson. And it's this idea that Rosie will be put into words for me, I suppose, in the breakup monologues, which we're reading for the book club this month, which was around the idea that maybe people will have multiple long-term monogamous partnerships, which I think I can buy into a lot more. And seems like that happens anyway. Yes, you will get those people that do marry one of the first people they're ever with and stay with them forever. But for a lot of us otherwise, we try to have as long a relationship as possible. And therefore, when those don't last forever, we then obviously move on to another one. And that's okay. That's the way it is. And I think a number of people would do that. I see that model in my life more than I see the one person forever model. And therefore, that's where my belief comes from in that. Now, today's episode is not going to be, talking about that and going into depth. We're actually going to go into the idea around the dating stage in general. What I hear from a lot of women is that they are frustrated. You are frustrated because you feel like you're not getting anywhere, that those men aren't out there that meet the standards that you've got. You don't want to drop those standards because you deserve more than that, and agreed. But it's the frustration that sometimes you can't get past a first date, even to a second date, can't actually get to a point where someone will commit to you. That's what I want to start digging into a little bit more, because it's a recurring frustration, and ultimately the odds are stacked against us. The numbers in dating are mad. It was when I was listening to an episode of Diary of a CEO that featured Mo Gaudat, and he was talking about this concept about the numbers, and he started off by kind of giving the example of, if you look at 10%, of a population by one thing that you're looking for in dating, that's 10% and 90% are ruled out. But then if you of that 10%, you're going for another thing that you're looking for in dating, and that's 10% of people. Well, it's not just 10% overall. 10% of 10% is 1%. And it got me thinking about the numbers that are included within dating, and along the lines of what Mo was referring to there. And I started to think, okay, so what really is a slightly more accurate probability? There's lots of presumptions when you do maths calculations. You're assuming certain things. So these are the numbers from what I could find online and what I could determine about the type of people that we might typically be interested in. And so there's lots of generalizations going on here. So let me start you off. So, for example, if we begin with men, I'm going to assume that you are a woman and you want to date men. That means that there are 49.2% of the population that are men. Full stop, that's the percentage that there are, which won't be new news. It's about 50%. There's always been slightly more women, so that's going to stack the odds against me if we apply a heterosexual model. Then I took a little look at the fact that not everybody is heterosexual anymore. You've got bisexuality, gay. You know, there's lots of different things that you could be labelled as now. And I just stuck with heterosexual. You might be open to someone being bisexual, and we've also got pansexual nowadays, but I just thought I would apply that. Now, it's quite a big number, big percentage anyway. It's 93.7%. And it doesn't tell us, and this is where the maths gets a little bit tricky, that's a generalisation of the whole population. There might be more men that are heterosexual than there are women, and so instantly my data would be skewed out. But I'm literally just taking it kind of as face value. So you've got 93%, 94% of the population being heterosexual, and then 49% of them being men. So you're halving that 93, 94%. So we're down in the early 40s at this point of percentages. Now, the next bit I wanted to look at was people that weren't in relationships. Now, this is really hard data to come across because the phrasing they use is that it's basically anything but if you're married, which to me doesn't make sense, because if you are long-term living with someone, partnered up in some way and don't live together, that means that you're classed as single in a lot of studies. So it makes it quite difficult to find out an exact stat. So the best I could find was that 50.5% of adults are married, about half. But then you've got living in a couple are 61%. There's that. And then you've got couples that don't live together. I've stuck with 40% not being partnered up in some way. I think that bit's too high. It's probably a little bit lower, but that's what I've gone with. And then the last one, remember that we're basing this calculation before we've even got to personality, attraction, behaviour, interests, their styles, love languages, anything like that. We're just dealing with the fact that we're probably or possibly looking for a male heterosexual that is single. That would be great. And lastly, within an age bracket I went for as well, based on who I know listen to this podcast. So those aged 25 to 44, and again, you might go, absolutely couldn't go down to 25 whilst I'm 40. I get that. So basically 26.5% of the population are aged 25 to 44. And if I extended that up to 25 to 49, it was 32%. So I stuck with the 26.5 because I felt like some of you would push the 25 up to sort of 30, say. And again, it's all rough because I'm assuming that there's the same proportion of men in each age category. And there isn't. There won't be. That's not how it works. So we're keeping this at a very basic level. So the calculation was basically you times them together. The 93.7% for heterosexuality, the 49.2% for being male population, the rough 0.4% of those that are single, and then the 26.5% for those within the age bracket 25 to 44, giving you that span of 20 odd years. When you multiply that together and you get a little decimal and make it into percentage, it is 4.8%. On basic demographics, there is a less than 5% chance of you finding someone that fits those. Now, some of you will have different sexualities, will be interested in different genders, will be interested in different age groups. I realise that it's a very blanket way of addressing this, but it's useful to give ourselves a break when we think that even just on that, which some of the numbers are high, heterosexuality being at 93.7%, the fact that it then whittles down to a 5% chance, and we haven't got to, which I know will matter to some of you, height. We haven't got to, as I mentioned, personality, actually getting on, being attracted to them. There's so much that then goes in after this 5%. We're starting at 5%. 5% is 1 in 20. You will find 1 in 20 men that fit the criteria, that basic criteria that you're looking for. And then think about all the other things that you're trying to get from somebody to make them fit, to make them the right person for you, for what they do, for how you two are together. Now, I don't want to dishearten people with those values. That's not what this is intended for. It's meant to be that the reality that some of you are living is reflective of that number. If 1 in 20 people just fit those basics beyond the other things that you want from a person, you're not going to find people that often. And if you find them that often, maybe you're not actually paying attention to the things that you want, and that's why then they're not even lasting. Or it's just a nice reminder to have that those numbers don't stack up well for us. It's not easy to find those people. And as much as I know dating apps can be the bane of some of your lives, and I've had that experience too, I have a love-hate relationship with them. I detest some of the other statistics within them, that there are more people that are avoidantly attached, on the apps because of the interaction and the way they prefer to do that. It is part of the process to work out what you want and what you're looking for by using dating apps. But my goodness, I also value them in the way that they connect us in ways that other things don't. We don't have many other ways to do that. I know there are more and more in-person events coming in that you can attend, which I think is also wonderful. I think it's another way to do it. But I literally went on a date whilst I was on holiday. And some people would be very angry about that concept of, but why would you go on a date whilst you're away, knowing that they didn't live nearby? Because it might not lead to anything. And I think knowing these kind of statistics and taking a different approach to dating is why it's important. The people that we meet pretty much on our dating apps, whilst they might meet that basic criteria, they might be one of the 5% on those basics. Then after that, we're still looking for something even more special than that. You've got to be down to less than 1% based on what you're looking for. The expectation we have of the people that we want to partner with are high. And so when we go on dates, to some degree, our expectation of that being a success and leading to something has to be low. Because if it was going to happen every time, it wouldn't make the right person so special when they do come along. And so I treat dating in a very different way now. I know dating apps can work. I've seen it. But I don't believe going in with such a tie to the outcome is beneficial to us, because it's the bit that gets you stressed the most. If you have that anxious attachment style, it triggers it massively if you're going in thinking about what's going to happen by the end. I've been subject to that. I've been involved in that process and know what that can feel like. And I know it's not nice. And I sometimes think it's because I have been, and I know some of you have expressed it too, and I've read about it. We get focused on what's going to happen later. And when you can take a step back and start looking at dating in a different way, I see all of the interactions I have with any people on any dating app of any kind as new people to meet. And sometimes that means, and from what I've witnessed, it means I can be just that little bit more chill about it. I cannot fret because I'm not so focused. The problem with dating apps, and sometimes I feel the pressure of that, is that they seem like they're so outcome-based. Sometimes if it's written in someone's profile of exactly what they're looking for, that will freak me out. And that's a good thing, right? It puts me off the people that are probably not meant for me. But that pressure, when I can't be convinced that I'd even want to be married again, can put me off of that. So I go into concept of dating in a different way. I take the approach of, these numbers are real low. And to come across someone really special that I would want to spend a big chunk of my life with going forwards is really, really low beyond the basics. And I know I've got some ridiculous standards, and I don't mind that they're ridiculous. They're important to me. They're the things that matter. They're the things that need to be there, because if they're not, I'm not going to be supported in the way I need to be. And you should have your things that you're looking for too. And I'm not talking about height. I'm not talking about colour eyes. I'm talking about the things that really matter. The things that you can overlook eye colour and height for. The reassurance I can give you is that even the 5%, when I then do the 4.8% across the population, the whole population of the UK, there are still 2.9 million candidates that fit the heterosexual male, that's single, and within a certain age bracket. That's still a lot of people. Small percentages across big groups still make big numbers. So we've got lots of candidates there, 2.9 million. That's constantly changing, of course, because people get divorced and they still need time to process, but at some point they will probably enter the dating pool. Relationships end, unfortunately. People get into relationships, they come out. You know, that 2.9 is shifting and changing all the time. So there's the first initial reassurance for you that this isn't, super detrimental and we're not going to never find anyone. But it might take longer than you thought it would. And it might take more and more failures than you thought it would. And that's another point that you need to hold on to. You are going to experience so many more failures as you go through your dating process than you are successes. Now, you can flip each failure into a success. But what I mean by failure in that sense is that it didn't become a relationship. That it didn't get past the third date. Your dating experience will be filled with no's. It will be filled with people that aren't for you. Now, I don't condone poor behaviour, such as not getting back to you, cancelling dates. Cancelling dates is part of it, but to ghost and to not have that respect within dating, I know is an even more other frustrating element of dating. But when someone cancels on you, when someone doesn't follow up for a second date, even though you kind of got along, it's always worth acknowledging that that's going to happen, because the people that are there and that are out there for you are special, and they're not something that you come across every day. And I know that's naff to have to hold on to and accept. You're like, but I don't want it to be like that. Yeah, but the numbers, straight away the numbers. You can't just overcome that with nothing. So then it comes back around to what I already mentioned. You have to know what you're really looking for. You have to decide what matters to you. Because if you are judging people on some of the basics, I really don't love football. I enjoy watching it every now and then, but the idea of someone that is predominantly into football would bug me. And it's the same with someone that's a smoker. To the point, I don't think I could live with a smoker if they wanted to. Oh, no. And personal preference. I've never smoked in my life. It is part of the smell that does it. It's not kind of the action, it's the impact that it can have on a space. To me, that one really matters. I couldn't have a living relationship with them. And that's not a problem. That might mean that I just have a different style relationship. I could choose that and I could talk to them about that. But that's, if they want to move in with someone eventually and raise kids, I'm not going to be the person for that. However, when it comes to the football thing, I could get over that. It depends on the lifestyle. It depends on how much that takes someone out each week, of course, because there's an impact. If they play, if they watch, if they have groups that do that, then there's potentially an impact on that. But on a basic principle of the person that I likes football, that's not so much of a problem for me. Their interest is something I can get over, unless, as I say, it has an impact on the lifestyle. So aside from accepting that there are going to be more no's than yeses, and getting over some of the things that don't matter that much to you, and instead making sure you focus on the really big things that do matter to you, you can also approach dating in a different way, like I said. Going into it as a way to meet other people and to create experiences, have fun, go out there and be single is just one way. Maintaining a bit more of a focus on the experience rather than the outcome keeps you very present. It keeps you focused on what's happening now rather than what's going to happen in 6 months, a year's time. And you spend so much time focusing on that thing that's not even here yet, you forget to look at what's right in front of you. And that is the biggest mistake I have made. It's the biggest mistake I hear people making. They are so worried, and it is a part of our attachment style potentially, but it can ruin the moment for you. And if that's coming up for you, then it's not been addressed yet. Whether you address that with the people that you're dating and get into a relationship, hopefully, or if you go to therapy, or if you seek other ways of self-help and exploring that, that's something to do. But to start shifting and understanding that it's about now. If you passed away tomorrow, there wouldn't be any marriage to even happen. There wouldn't be any relationship. Imagine all the times that you skipped having fun because you were worried about what was happening with this person for 6 months' time when you couldn't focus on now. Don't let that be one of those regrets towards the end of the year when you were so focused on what might or might not happen than it is to look at what's happening now. A friend of mine's husband actually was talking to me about this, and he said something along the lines of, if I had known that I would meet my husband at the time that I did, I would have spent a lot more of my 20s not stressed about it. And I know I can't guarantee to anybody listening that you will find your person by a particular time. But if you can put that in your frame of mind and just go, I will meet them. I know that that's really hard. Put a number on it if you want. I'll meet them by the time I'm 36. Give yourself some sort of just belief, something that you can believe in, something realistic to you. You're using a psychology trick there to trick your brain into thinking that that's going to happen. It's not necessarily going to happen. Some people might believe in manifestation and actually manifesting that element, but something that allows your psychology to put faith in the system forwards, which is sometimes what we have to do with life, and not letting it ruin your now, is the beautiful part of life and dating. And everyone talks about being present, meditation. When you can do that to its truest form in that sense, and I don't mean meditating and becoming present for 10 minutes, I mean taking in these moments and being with the people that you spend them with and getting to know the people in front of you and not worrying about what societal expectation you're going to hit or not hit. It frees you up. And that's why I went on a dating app whilst I was abroad. I met somebody. I saw them a few times whilst I was there. We hung out at the pool. We played card games. We went and had drinks. And some of you would be like, but what's going to happen? I don't know. I haven't even discussed anything like that because I'm just enjoying talking to that person full stop. Yep, they don't live nearby. But will I visit them at some point? I'd like to think so. Absolutely. Am I worried about what it will become or never become, or that, oh, but that, what? There's so many, I can think of all the things that are going through some of your heads right now that are in disbelief over that. But I don't see it as something that validates me or invalidates me. As long as everything's kind of ethical, because people be like, well, are you allowed to? I'm not even going to get into the ins and outs of that, because there's not ins and outs of it. It's two people talking and learning about one another. Yes, a dating app facilitated it. Who knows what it is? You don't know. You don't know anybody after a very small number of dates. Everything takes time. And that's worth also looking at the kind of realistic expectation that we have of what goes on in our lives with dating. Sometimes we expect people to know within 3 or 4 dates. And people would argue with me on that. Well, you know. When you know. I don't necessarily think that's true for everyone. I think some people would sometimes get that vibe and it works out right. When have you decided that you know that someone in front of you is for you, is the one, like this is it, and then they don't continue that maybe 2-3 weeks later, or even a couple of months in later, and you're like, but no, I thought everything was looking good? Or when have you just said that they were the one, like they were great, they were perfect, and then you changed your mind? That happens because you don't always know someone yet, and that's okay. And that's why we get these no's even further down the line, because these percentages of what we're really looking for a really good match, and I'm not saying it should be perfection by any means either. You need to look at certain bits and compromise, but you can't compromise too far that you lose the strength in your values and what's important to you. It's really important to accept that we can't control the outcome. And the more you try to control the outcome in dating, the worse the experience usually is for you. You can enjoy what's going on. You can appreciate it. You can accept when someone steps away. And hey, step into your masculine energy a little bit and follow up on them with a double text if you really want to. Just to get that off your chest, as I would stick with. This is very me in approach. I would rather know than never know at all. That would be me. But in some cases, you will be happy to accept it and leave it because you'll have built that strength up. Dating and the dopamine hits that we get from dating are just like the Olympians getting their gold medals in the Olympics. There is such a thing as when they go through the depression after winning, because they had so much to focus on and to do and to achieve. And once they get there, they're like, what next? And sometimes that happens to us in relationships. We spend all this time like trying to get it right, trying to find someone, and then you find them and it's not all it was cracked up to be, because there is more to our lives than ticking the box of being in a relationship and getting married. I know some of you have other motives, to have children, and therefore you want to facilitate that with a partnership. I completely respect that. But sometimes it doesn't do everything we thought it would. And these numbers shouldn't get us down. Those numbers are there to remind you that this is difficult. And you look at other couples sometimes, you'll be like, how? How have they done it and I haven't yet? Well, maybe they've got different standards, and maybe there just so happens to be more of those people than that. And maybe they put themselves out there in a different way to finding those people. There's so many moving parts with these, with the probabilities of crossing paths even. Let's not even go into that. What are the odds that you would even swipe right on one another? Is an odds in itself. It's got a probability behind it. There is so much at play, and there's so many things that are stacked against you, that the resilience you build in dating must be a really good skill for everything else, because it is not easy. So when you're feeling the most down about dating, when that person has said, look, it's just not working for me, I want to focus on something else, or I'm just not seeing it between the two of us, you're lovely, but it's just not right. Remember that they're not the 1 in every 100 that will say yes and want to even try. And I think the numbers will be even worse than that. I think the odds will be worse than that. You're looking for something special. You're looking for something that's right for you. And if you are the unique individual that I hope that you are, you're not trying to be like everyone else, you're trying to be your own person, then you will remember that and keep true to that when you're in the dating game, because you won't compromise on who you are and what you want just to get into the relationship or marriage club. You'll wait it out for the right person to come along for you. If we take that candidacy of 2.9 million men that fit that category that are heterosexual. The Single Girls Club isn't necessarily only for those that are heterosexual. It is open to any single girl, any person that identifies as a woman that is single predominantly. Sometimes people come along that are in relationships, but really we want to find the people that are single, that are just like us, that want to understand and share what it's like to be single. And it's not against men in any way. Something I really value in what we talk about in the Single Girls Club is it's not a man-hating club. It is a club where we share our experiences and the frustrations of dating apps, of the behaviour, of then pushing on to actually living our best lives, even whilst we're single, of managing living alone, of managing a house, which is so difficult at times, and coming together. So if there are 2.9 million men, and we know that there's slightly more women in the world than men, then that stat is probably going to be about that there's 3 million heterosexual single women, and that would be slightly bigger because we don't take sexuality into account. They're the people I want to try and connect together in the UK to talk about these low stats and how annoyed we are, and to share when we start getting excited about someone. You are still allowed to enjoy dating by all means. I wouldn't talk so much about it if I didn't think it was part of what it is. I would love to experience another relationship and try something different to what I'd done before, even in the short relationship I had since being in my marriage, but also just compared to my marriage too. That's a long-term one. But I don't sit there and wait for that to happen every single day. I don't think about that all the time. I'm not glued to my phone on dating apps. It's part of what I do here and there. I like to meet people, and I think the more people you meet, I think you increase the odds. And I don't just mean with a dating intention. Meeting people in any format can encourage you to increase those odds and to find those right little percentages of people that are for you. That is what dating effectively is about, and accepting that if nothing happens, if you do go in with an intention of dating, you can enjoy the moment, have fun, have a really fun date, and it's just written off as that. It wasn't a waste. It isn't just another person to be like, oh, not them. I mean, you've just eliminated one more person from the pool, and that's fine. Maybe for some people it is just not now. It's up to you if you want to keep in touch with those people and if they're prepared to keep in touch with you. And some people you might reconnect with later, whether that's 10 years' time, 20 years' time. Are you going to be with that one person that you do meet in the end forever? Maybe you will. Maybe you'll be one of those lucky ones. Otherwise, you want to keep meeting these people and keeping connections up. All the connections in our life matter. That's what helps us overcome that feeling of loneliness. And we can't leave our happiness down to a chance meeting of one person, if that's what you're attaching it to. Your happiness has to come now. Otherwise, you don't know when that's going to come. And to live in this, I'll be happy when I'm with someone, is stealing it from yourself. You're stealing the joy and the experience that you could be having away because you're so attached to this one person. Yes, the odds are against us. The odds are stacked against us in dating, but we're not going to let that stop us. And we're not going to let that stop us from dating sometimes. Yeah, we'll get the ump and we'll take time out, but it won't stop us if that's something that we want for the future, whether it's just for relationship reasons or if we want a family as well. But we also won't let those numbers stop us from enjoying our life now. There are approximately 3 million other women that are single within a certain age range that want to be celebrating single life, and we can do that together. So if you have enjoyed this podcast episode, please give it a review or share it on your Instagram. Get the word spread about not just the podcast, but particularly the Single Girls Club, where we come together and make the most of that single life and start enjoying it, doing fun things and not holding back. Until next time, everybody, keep celebrating single life together.